Game. Another interesting matchup for Dak Prescott on Sunday as the Cowboys take on the Ravens. Ray Lewis, who played with Joe Flacco for 5 years, had some strong words about his former quarterback on FS1. Gifted? Absolutely. Passionate about what he do? I've never seen that. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's because his personality just isn't that personality. He's not a rah-rah guy. He won't say much. But in the game of football, there has to be some burning fire behind you. Max, does Joe Flacco get a pass because he's won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, and he deserves one. That's how you earn a pass. We don't just give it to him. You go get it. Joe Flacco has the pass, like Eli Manning has a couple of passes, because he won a Super Bowl, yes. And by the way, is Flacco elite? The endless debate. I don't know. How do you define elite? In the regular season, Flacco, if you look at QBR or just use your eyes, he's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. He's average, which, by the way, an average quarterback in the NFL is what most teams would like. If you can get because that's a pretty damn good player, as Joe Flacco is. But there are so many really good ones.
You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about right there. Average.
That's right.
Guys would do a great. If they can do anything to have an average quarterback.
An average player at that position
say
has a lot of value in the NFL. That is true. However, in the playoffs, Flacco becomes a top 10 type quarterback. QBR goes from 60 to 68. That's usually around a top 10 quarterback. So you tell me, is that elite or not? Or is that just really good? Whatever that is, he's a good quarterback, solid in the regular season, and in the playoffs, he's excellent. So however you want to define that, that's what Joe Flacco is. He won the Super Bowl. He has that pass. Absolutely.
This is a tough one. Here's why. Because of 2 points that you made, which I will give you credit for, and it's a rare moment. I think it's important for viewers in First Take to know that I'm giving you credit because it's rare that you deserve it. So let me be
like the pass.
And give it
you
to
don't give
you.
It,
okay?
I take it.
Okay, I got you. 2 of the last 3 years, the Baltimore Ravens have missed the playoffs, but you are right. Flacco does up it in the postseason. His QBR does elevate, not to mention the fact that he's a Super Bowl champion. However, here's where it gets a bit tricky. He got his money. And since he got his money, he's missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. Lost a divisional playoff game, some would say he should not have lost in between, sandwiched in between all that, okay? And this year, they've been somewhat mediocre. Not to mention the fact 3 of the previous 4 years coming into this season, you, Maximilian, you know, mathematician extraordinaire and all of this other stuff. You know the QBR was below 53 of the last 4 years entering the season, right?
Yep.
So we got to pay attention to that too. And so then when you couple that, now we get into a different subject. Because with Flacco, while I want to give him credit, and I want to give him credit for that Super Bowl, and I want to give him credit for the cachet that unquestionably provides, it is important to point this out. I consider Ray Lewis one of the greatest leaders, if not the greatest leader we've ever seen in football. In terms of galvanizing the troops. Galvanizing the troops. Don't forget his greatness on the field. I'm just talking about his leadership. As it specifically pertains to dudes being focused, being on their grind, doing what's necessary. Ray Lewis, my man, my brother, I got to say, he might be the greatest leader I've ever seen on a football field. For him to say what he said about Flacco resonates with me, and here's why. It's all right to go out there and just play when you're a good player. But when you are the quarterback, your talent is not the only thing that's relied upon. It's also your leadership ability or lack thereof, which is why we brought into question the great Aaron Rodgers, because of what he's been saying and how he's alienated folks in recent weeks with some of his words. I think about some of the interceptions that Flacco has thrown. I think about some of the games he's come up short. I think about the troops around him and his inability to rally them the way that you would want somebody to be able to do that. I listen to individuals who used to play for the Patriots and still play for the Patriots. They call Tom Brady the ninja. They talk about how he gets in a huddle. They talk about how he goes through certain drills just like the rest of the guys. He's butting heads with them. He's fired up and ready to go. You never see that from Joe Flacco. Now, for us looking on the outside, Max, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because there may very well be certain things we simply do not know. But when Ray Lewis comes out and literally says that about you, that's a problem. And then when your comeback is, well, Ray's definitely a leader. He's definitely more vocal, but 90% of the time, I don't understand what the hell he's saying. That's your comeback if you Joe Flacco? Joe Flacco should be looking in the mirror, looking at the mediocre results that he and his team have produced in recent years, and ask himself, what is it I have not done that I was supposed to do to elevate this franchise? Because they certainly paid me the money to do it, and they damn sure didn't give it to me to go out there and be an average quarterback.
My former broadcast partner, Marcellus Wiley, on TV and the radio for the last 5+ years, used to talk about this. Usually as it pertains to like wideouts who are considered prima donnas. When personality trumps production, people don't want to put up with you anymore. And maybe that is the case in this case with Joe Flacco. When you have a certain style of leadership, which is not very vocal, maybe it's just leading by example, people will let that fly until you don't get the results anymore. And then they start to look at different things, including your personality. They start to question it. I would point out that Flacco has played in 15 playoff games in his career and is 10-5. He, in the playoffs, wins twice as much as he loses, and as we both just acknowledged, elevates his play. So again, is he perfect? No. You can find flaws in every player, and in quarterback, maybe not being a very demonstrative leader is a flaw that is amplified when you're not getting the results on the field, and maybe it's not a great flaw to have. But and fine, that might be fair criticism. But take the entire package of Joe Flacco. He's available in the draft, and you know what he is. Are you drafting him again, Ravens fans? You bet you are. You would take that package, including the Super Bowl and the pass he gets from it, which is partly also due to his ability to perform under pressure.
Yep, but that does not mean he's not getting a pass, because remember, we are holding him accountable since he got the money. And that's something that we can't ignore. We got to pay attention to that. Flacco in his first 2 years in the league, when he was in the postseason, threw 3 interceptions in the postseason each year. Ever since then, he's been significantly better. We understand that. The flip side to it is, how good have you been since you got the money? And that's something as a society we pay attention to as well. When you get the money and then your level of production dissipates and your leadership ability doesn't come into play, we got a problem. Because when we talk about what Ray Lewis deserved, once upon a time he deserved it because he was that middle linebacker extraordinaire. Then ultimately, it wasn't just because of his play on the field, it was because of the leadership that enabled him, in concert with John Harbaugh and Ozzie Newsome, to hold dudes accountable, which ultimately led to 2 Super Bowl titles. We can't ignore that.
What you're talking about is internal motivation versus external motivation. The kind of contracts, the big contracts you want to give to players, if you're a fan or the franchise, is you want to give those contracts to internally motivated players. Because when they get the money, that doesn't change a thing for them. Their motivation doesn't come from that. It comes from inside of them. Are you questioning Joe Flacco's internal motivation? Because I don't think...
Did you just say, for the record, that money doesn't change your motivation? Did you just say that?
Not for internally motivated players. Kobe Bryant, when he was balling, didn't matter if he got the money or not. Kobe was going to give you everything he had, no matter what. He is an internally motivated guy. That's what made him great. Ray Lewis, you just pointed out. Those are the kind of guys you want. Tom Brady. You want to give those guys the money. Well, the guys who, once they get the money, they're externally motivated. That's what they were playing for. So which one is Flacco?
So which one is Flacco?
I don't think Flacco's externally motivated. He seems to me, generally the guys who perform under pressure, that level of competitor who's able to harness whatever he's got when you need it most, generally those are the internally motivated guys. Are you saying that Flacco you're questioning his internal motivation?
I'm questioning it. I'm not definitively saying it's one or the other. I'm saying the fact that I don't know is an indictment against Flacco on a day like today, where his former teammate, who's widely recognized as arguably the greatest leader on a football field we've ever seen and is a future Hall of Famer, that man saying what he said about Flacco gives me cause to pause, because I'm looking at Flacco and I'm saying, you know what, he really has not been the same since he got that money. I am saying that. I am saying that. I don't know why. It could be because of a myriad of injuries that they suffered from last year. It could be because, you know what, things are Ozzie Newsome got to get better personnel. John Harbaugh can't be too comfortable himself. It could be a variety. It might not even be his fault. But it does give me cause to pause. Because Ray Lewis could have talked about Harbaugh. He could have talked about Ozzie Newsome. He could have talked about a plethora. He could have talked about Suggs. He said Flacco. And he said what he said. And damn it, if Ray Lewis says something about the Baltimore Ravens, I don't know what closer to gospel you can get on the Ravens than Ray Lewis. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yep, and Joe Flacco certainly doesn't believe that. Like you mentioned, he was saying that he felt a lot of his speeches didn't even make sense. So we'll see if that internally
very disrespectful. Very
externally
disrespectful
motivated quarterback can get it done on Sunday against Dak Prescott and those Dallas Cowboys. But speaking of struggling quarterbacks, gentlemen, that bad man is looking for good results on Sunday in our nation's capital. Will we see a vintage A-Rod or will the Whack Pack show up? We discuss that next. And a little later in the show, one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in NFL history will join the program. Stay tuned as we welcome one, Mike Vick.
Vick being chased, coming near side, keeping the football. 40, 35, 30, 25, 15, 10. Go, Mike Vick! It's over! It's over! Yes!